Is it okay for men to make mistakes, particularly in relationship with the feminine? This was where the conversation went in my last talk with someone on the dance of polarity, and it was a really interesting place to arrive at this idea that we landed there because this person recognized that in her experience, women are or have been a lot quicker to express themselves, and they may go down one path, realize that it's wrong, change directions. Men, in her experience, on the other hand, take their time before expressing something. And actually, in her experience, what can happen or has happened from people that she knows is that in that space where the man or men are processing before they express themselves, the women perhaps demonstrate impatience and jump in and repeat what it is that they're saying, or just take over. And it was really interesting to explore that because from my understanding, it seems that men feel less safe to express themselves freely because maybe there is not an opportunity for them to get things wrong. And it kind of came back to this idea that the man or men are supposed to exhibit this sense of certainty and clarity and directness and knowing, and in expressing meanderingly and getting things wrong is perhaps perceived as less masculine, or it's emasculating. And so it kind of led to the idea that it's not safe for men to express themselves and get things wrong. And what this person shared was that in her experience, this has kind of led to a vicious cycle where a man would do something and they would give feedback or criticize, and that wasn't received well, and so it would then drop her into a negative response, which would then lead to a negative response in him, and it would just go round and round. Partly I feel that speaks into a communication piece. How can, as women, as the feminine, feedback be offered in a way that doesn't feel emasculating? Now you may say, well, this is the man's responsibility to not feel criticized. And yes, I'm not trying to take away sovereignty in expressing that idea. And if a man isn't as emotionally adept, then perhaps it's the opportunity and invitation for a woman or the feminine to be able to navigate that in a way that invites them to step up rather than them feel inadequate. That kind of landed, I think, for me. That when a man or when a woman expresses a discontent or a dissatisfaction or something not being right, that they don't feel safe or something like that, it can be perceived sometimes, and I've been guilty of this as well, as a man or me not feeling good enough. It corrodes, or it highlights a lack of masculinity, that something is wrong or that something is amiss or I've done something wrong. There's this perception of emasculation, or I should have known. And I think this is perhaps speaking to men on a broader scale as well, that it can be perceived as an inadequacy as opposed to an opportunity. I think that's the key here. It's how can it be shared or expressed, and also from the male point of view in a sovereign state, how can it be received in a way that it's perceived as an invitation to rise rather than an inadequacy of not enoughness. This kind of speaks into tantric teachings, where this idea of not enoughness, this inadequacy, I see it as stemming from, I've spoken about this in other videos, so please feel free to check those out, that within us all, men and women, is this essence nature, this divine spark that is expressed uniquely through our individuality. But it's this God spark, if you will, this divine consciousness, which is the consciousness in the view of non-dual Shaiva Tantra. All there is, was, ever will be is one consciousness, and it expresses itself through manifest reality in all of these myriad of ways. It's the idea of the waves being part of the ocean, that they're not separate, they're just a part of it and a unique expression of it. So this divine essence nature, which is who we are really, we lose sight of that. Our awareness, in its freedom to do as it can, has the ability to over-identify with our ego construct. The ego construct being our sense of individuality. It's the collection of thoughts and beliefs that create the construct of an individual. And it's not that it's not real, but it's not who we are at our essence. It's the expression of our essence uniquely as us. And because our awareness over-identifies with that ego self, which is limited compared to the limitless divine essence nature, we perceive ourselves to be not enough. Wow, I'm limited. I need something to fill that emptiness, that not enoughness, that gap. The thing is because it's comparing itself, the limited ego self is comparing itself to the limitless divine essence nature. And by definition, it can never match, because it's limited. That's what it is. It's what makes it what it is. In over-identifying with our limitedness, when we come up against something that reminds us of that, rather than seeing it as an invitation for expansion, we see it as a deficit, and not a good enoughness, and not enoughness, an inadequacy. The way to overcome this is to realign to truth, to realign to the view, the understanding through tantric view, that who you really are at your core is this divine consciousness, which gets to express itself as you, this limited expression of you. And that's okay. In knowing that, you can never not be enough. You can never be inadequate. You can never not be whole or enjoy. Instead, in returning to that, you then get to evolve the egoic part of yourself, or enjoy being in this human experience for what it has to offer, and knowing that it's just a part of who you are, not actually who you are at your essence. And so the reflection that I had in this conversation, for her, it was to feel safe is to be, partly at least, to be considered by a man, for her needs and wants to be taken into consideration. And the other takeaway was this idea that it's a woman's opportunity, or the feminine opportunity, to create a safe space for men to make mistakes, because, and it seems this way, that, okay, more tantric teachings, there is a heart-mind layer of consciousness, and this says that thoughts and emotions aren't separate, they're inextricably linked, that thoughts are the more logical expression of this layer of consciousness, and emotions are more the embodied expression of this layer of consciousness, the more felt sense. But they're linked, so you can't have a thought without a feeling, or a feeling without a thought. However, the feminine quality of emotion compared to the masculine quality of logic or thought means that typically women have more of an attunement to the feminine quality, or perhaps it's not even they have more of a, I think they have more of an attunement because they're so much more somatic, in the sense that they have a lot going on with them, with their bodies, more so than men. And so there's this connection to this intuitive sense of feeling, of emotion. Men, however, have been perhaps discouraged in society from embracing this because it's perceived to be more womanly. And so, as a result, they're, one, feeling less capable of expressing themselves, two, less safe because it's seen as womanly or less masculine. And so and three, men aren't able to make mistakes, or then they're making mistakes is maybe not allowed, but it's perceived as less manly, maybe, or less desirable. Let's go with that. So that combination means that men aren't as adept at expressing themselves, aren't able to make mistakes. And so how can they learn to express themselves emotionally if they don't feel safe to do so? And in doing so, they run the risk of being perceived as less manly. And that's kind of where we're at. It's how, as a woman, how can you create a safe space for a man to feel safe to express himself and get things wrong? And in order to do that, it kind of comes to dealing with the mental, emotional blockages, the stories, the beliefs that limit you from actually doing that. And that's where the mind yoga comes in. It's unknotting these mental, emotional blockages that prevent you from residing in love, in life, in success, to be able to create the space to invite men into that. And again, not taking away the responsibility of men, not taking away anyone's sovereignty. In fact, I spoke about this in another video, the lack of opportunity and encouragement for men to see the emotional side of the heart-mind layer of consciousness. They're only seeing half the coin. So they're actually not as empowered, they're not as sovereign as a woman who's been invited to and allowed to express herself intellectually and emotionally. So, yeah. Food for thought. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, please reach out. If you recognize that there are things coming up for you, blockages or beliefs in the mind or heart, mind, mental, emotional realm, and you're wanting to overcome them to not only deepen into love and into life, but also to succeed in relationship, then again, connect. Write something in the chat. If something landed with you, feel free to share it. Continuing the conversation, because that's how we create change. Speak to you soon.